Welcome to CSU East Bay's Online Student Success presentation. We encourage you to take the next few moments to reflect on what it's like inside an online class from a student's perspective and ensure enrolling in an online class or a fully online degree program is the right choice for you. For many students, online classes seem like a dream come true. Who wouldn't jump at the opportunity to go to class in their pajamas or save money on gas? While there are some tremendous benefits that come along with enrolling in an online class, you may be interested to learn that many first-time online students report more challenges, anxieties, and frustrations than they had in their face-to-face college classes. And as a result, more students end up unexpectedly dropping an online class after it begins, or struggle as they cope with a very unexpected set of challenges throughout the class. But you won't be one of those students because you're making the effort to get prepared and find out if an online class is right for you. So let's get started. The images here illustrate two very different learning environments. One is a traditional face-to-face classroom, and the other is an example of what an online classroom may look like. But what we want to explore here is how these two learning environments create two very different experiences for you as a student. So let's start with that question. How is online learning different? Well, first, as you noticed in our last image comparison, there is no physical classroom in an online class. And this leads to number two. There is no scheduled class time because there is no physical place in which you need to be. That sounds pretty great, doesn't it? But remember, no classroom and no scheduled class time leaves you learning in an isolated environment. Another difference between face-to-face and online learning is the type of communications that are employed. In an online class, you rely upon asynchronous or delayed communications like email or discussion boards, rather than synchronous or real-time communications like the type of conversations you have with people in face-to-face classrooms. Another major difference is that all the content or materials for your learning will be delivered through an internet-connected computer rather than spoken to you, projected on a screen, or handed to you in a classroom. And finally, in many online classes, content may be delivered mainly in text form, versus in a classroom where you are used to hearing more of your learning material delivered orally. Now that we've identified a list of differences between face-to-face and online learning, let's consider each item on our list and identify student success strategies for avoiding tragic pitfalls that often surface in relation to these elements of online learning. Not having a physical classroom to learn in creates many challenges for students who are used to learning in a traditional space. To be successful as an online student, it's important that you identify a specific learning location for yourself before your class begins. Give thought ahead of time to allocating a space for yourself to read, reflect, discuss, possibly record audio, all the aspects of your online learning experience that will be required for success. Secondly, be very aware that the daily activities that regularly occur in your everyday surroundings will now be incorporated into your online learning environment. While you may envision learning from home, while you have the freedom to manage your personal responsibilities at the same time as a luxury, be aware that this is an incredible challenge as well. It's probably not the best idea to plan to study in the middle of a space that will be flooded with loud daily activities or constant disruptions. Be realistic and structure your situation effectively. Rely upon your help network for support, your friends, relatives, neighbors, and plan ahead for success. Our second distinctive characteristic about online learning is that there is no scheduled class time. When you're panning through a list of face-to-face classes, it's easy to weed out those classes simply based upon the fact that you're not available to attend them on their scheduled days and hours. But with online classes, there are usually no specific days and hours that you need to attend, except if a class requires a face-to-face exam, which would be noted in the class schedule. So it's really tempting to just assume you can do it all, isn't it? Well, a successful online student takes a different approach. A successful online student understands that you need to manage your other commitments responsibly. If you already have a full schedule, you need to be realistic that you will either need to scale back your current responsibilities in order to take on your new responsibilities as a student, or accept that you'll be extending your workdays significantly until the class has ended. You also need to prioritize and manage your time effectively. And perhaps most challenging, acknowledge that it's easier to ignore an online commitment than a face-to-face commitment. Ask yourself, are you going to be able to turn down an offer to go to that cool concert in the city if you have to complete your project for your online class before the due date? Remember, there will be no professor standing over you urging you to get your work in. Prioritizing your online learning commitment, along with your face-to-face activities and responsibilities, will be up to you and you alone. Here's a study tip that was offered by an experienced online student. I think it sums up the challenges presented by our first two distinctive characteristics of the online learning experience pretty well. Moving on to characteristic number 3 of an online learning environment, you are isolated. The pitfalls that surface with this characteristic are generally related to your own social style, your ability to self-motivate, and your comfort level with technology. A successful online student clearly understands the importance of self-motivation. If you are alone, again, there will be no one physically present to encourage you to get that paper in before the deadline, to submit that assignment on time, nobody to remind you that there's an exam that needs to be completed tonight before midnight. Those are your responsibilities. You need to manage them. Now, some students do that very well, and some students admit that this is an area of weakness for them. Where do you fall? Also, you'll be dealing with 100% of your learning experience presented through a technical interface. A successful online student is comfortable with technology and troubleshooting technical challenges alone. And to be successful in an online class, you should also enjoy working independently. Give some thought to your social style. Do you really thrive in a group environment? Or do you enjoy working alone? Do you think you'd feel lost without a physical contact nearby to reach out for and have reassurance? Do you need support? Do you need frequent help? This isn't to imply you won't have help as an online student, but to stress that your help and your support will be provided virtually and not through a physical contact. How do you feel about that? Those are things you should be considering. Now let's talk about communications in online classes and how they differ from a face-to-face learning environment. In a traditional classroom, learners and a professor are all in a room at one time, and communications occur in real time, which is called synchronous communication. Students in an online class, however, do not log in at one specific time. Therefore, there is no unified communication period in which synchronous dialogue occurs, unless this is specifically arranged and scheduled by the professor. So the type of communications that shape an online class are delayed or asynchronous, and they generally take the form of discussion boards and email. But there are other methods that may be employed as well. Getting used to the workflow of asynchronous communications can create challenges for students, particularly when you're used to getting answers right away. So, a successful online student understands the need to wait for answers to questions. You realize your professor is not sitting at his or her computer 24 hours a day waiting for your inquiries. Be realistic about your expected response time. As you'll likely be engaging in discussions in your online classes, you'll need to log into your class frequently so you can read new discussion contributions shared by your classmates. Keep in mind that discussions will take more time to evolve in an online class, and if you only check in on a discussion one time, you will not grasp the full evolution of the dialogue, and you'll miss out on the full learning experience. Finally, your communication success hinges upon taking the time to carefully write out clear questions before you send emails and submit discussion posts. Read your work carefully, even out loud before you submit it. If you do not clearly communicate exactly what it is that you're asking or trying to convey, then your response will not provide you with the answer you are seeking, and you'll need to start all over again. And that's not a very effective use of time. While we're on the topic of differences in communications between online and face-to-face learning, let's take a peek at this terrific quote from an online student. In my online classes, I have input every week on my every subject and interact with almost all of my classmates. On-campus classes are often dominated by certain personalities, and the majority of students do not participate. What has enriched my learning experience in the online classroom is the wide open door to participate in discussions with the teacher and students. I have never been in an on-campus class where there is time for each student to answer a question or dialogue with other classmates on the topic, as there is on discussion board. This is a very common perspective shared by online learners after their first class. At first, you may feel surprised and challenged by the amount of interaction you're required to contribute to your class. But in the end, you'll understand that the interaction and ideas shared by your classmates contributes to your own learning. In an online class, you'll be learning in a community. So really, you aren't alone or isolated at all, and that's a very important point. You truly are part of a group of learners who share a common goal, to successfully learn, and you'll achieve this together. And participating regularly in this community is an essential part of your online learning experience. Active learning, which is central to an effective online learning experience, places you, the student, at the center. Your participation is paramount to your learning success. Difference number 5 reminds us that all your learning content will be delivered through a computer. So what are the pitfalls here? Well, they're pretty obvious. Technical challenges, right? Really think about all the content that is included in a class, from the moment you meet your professor on day 1 until that very last day of class. All of that content will now be accessed through a computer. Let's see what tips we have for you. A successful online student has a reliable internet connection, high-speed internet preferred. By the way, be sure to visit the online campus website for a current list of technical requirements for online classes. You will also plan time for technical problems. This is a disguised message that really means do not procrastinate in an online class. When you are relying so heavily upon technology, procrastination is your worst enemy. When you wait until the last minute, that's precisely when your network will fail, when your screen will go dark, when your flash drive will break. Don't let it happen. Do your work with plenty of extra time to deal with challenges like these. Also, you'll be regularly utilizing a computer and the internet to learn, so you need sufficient technical skills to ensure you have a successful experience. Please review the guidelines on the online campus website for further information. Our final difference between online and face-to-face learning environments is that content may be delivered mainly in text form when you're learning online. This is changing more and more as video and audio are becoming more accessible and standardized, but you may find that compared to your face-to-face classes, you will spend much more of your time reading in an online class. Think about all that information that your professor would normally deliver orally to you in a classroom. You may find that this content is delivered in a text-based announcement or lecture instead. So why could this be a challenge to a student? Well, it may be and it may not be, and here's why. If you want to be successful in an online class, it's a great idea to identify your learning preference. Each of us has one or more preferred methods of learning, and this is something that's really pretty fascinating to learn about, especially if you're a student. Some of us are read-write learners. Some of us are visual learners. Some of us prefer to learn orally through listening. And kinesthetic learners, on the other hand, understand ideas and concepts best when they can actively engage in activities. For example, going to a museum to see art, or dissecting an insect to understand its anatomy. Each online class will be designed differently and will employ a variety of learning activities that will touch upon different learning preferences. But you may find that many classes will focus heavily on reading because of the nature of the online content. It's very important for you to understand your learning preference so you can understand why you may feel challenged in a particular learning environment. Understanding this information is really key to your success as a student overall and can help you develop helpful studying strategies in all of your classes. See the online campus website for more information about how to identify your learning preference. So, are you ready? We hope this resource has helped you become informed about the differences between online and face-to-face learning, and that it will contribute to the success of your future learning experiences at CSU East Bay. Good luck.